Hello besties, welcome to Amma Storytime. Please subscribe and leave a like for us, it means the world to us. Also share this video to your friends and loved ones and turn on post notifications so you don't miss future videos from us. Thank you. As you do so, sit back and relax as we dive into the story. Nui was a small village, hidden deep in the green hills of the old Nigerian kingdom. Life there was simple. The people farmed their yams, fetched water from the stream, and sat together in the evenings to tell stories, laugh, and share the day's gossip. In Nui, everybody knew everybody. If something happened to one person, by the next morning, the whole village would know. But lately, what spread around was not gossip, it was fear. For months now, young women had been found dead, one after the other. No one knew what was killing them, but everybody carried the same terrifying mark. 2 deep wounds on the neck, like snake bites. Yet no one ever saw a snake. The deaths always happened in secret and silence. That made it even worse. It felt as if something unseen, something evil, was moving in the shadows of Nui. The village elder, Elder Tinubu, a man whose word carried weight like the gong at a festival, sent hunters into the forest to search. But they came back with nothing. No giant python. No cobra. Nothing. And still, the killings continued. Fear wrapped itself around the village like a dark cloud. Mothers warned their daughters never to move alone at night. Even in the daytime, women no longer felt safe. The once lively village of laughter, drums, and songs turned quiet. But there was one man who did not care about the fear. His name was Obi. Ask any woman in Nui who the finest man in the village was, and their answer would always be the same: Obi. He was tall, his body strong and muscular from days of building houses with his hands. His skin was smooth and dark, like polished ebony, and his eyes carried a strange shine, like he always knew something you didn't. His smile alone could melt the strongest heart. When Obi walked through the village, women would giggle and blush, secretly praying he would glance their way. And when he did, it felt like the sun had chosen to shine on only them. But Obi's charm wasn't just his face. It was the way he spoke. It was smooth, deep, like the calm before a storm. It was the way he moved, confident, steady, as if he was always in control. He knew exactly what to say to make a woman feel like the only person in the world. And that was his gift, and his curse. Behind him being cute was his charming words. Obi carried a secret so dark it could destroy the entire village. He moved around without fear, smiling as if nothing was wrong, as if death wasn't striking down women night after night. His confidence, his swagger, his irresistible charm, all of it was bait. Like sugar that draws ants. One smile. A few sweet words. A promise whispered in the moonlight. That was all Obi needed. Soon, the woman would follow him to his hut at the edge of the village, far from curious eyes. There, under the soft glow of the moon, Obi would play his game. He would be gentle, patient, careful, making her feel like she was special, chosen and loved. And then, always the same strange question. Do you know the difference, he would ask softly, between a man's manhood and a snake? The women always laughed, thinking it was a silly joke. But before they could answer, Obi would whistle. It was a low, eerie sound, like the call of a night spirit. The air in the room would change. The women's smiles would fade. Their bodies would stiffen as unease crawled over their skin. And then it happened. Something would stir. Something would shift. A dark, glistening snake would slither out from Obi's trousers. The women froze, too shocked, too afraid to scream. The serpent would coil around them, slow, deliberate, as if savoring their fear. And then, with terrifying speed, it would strike its fangs sinking deep into their neck. The poison was merciless. Their bodies would shake, their breath would catch, and within minutes, they were gone. By morning, the villagers would find the lifeless body laid out in the square. Pale. Cold. Always with those same strange marks on the neck. And every time, the villagers would gather, whispering, what kind of snake could do this? But no one suspected the charming, handsome Obi. The man every woman wanted. The man every man envied. The man whose darkest secret was also his greatest weapon. And so the killings continued. And the people of Nui had no idea the real serpent was already living amongst them. One day a new face appeared in the village, a woman named Chetachi. She was different from the other women in Nui, tall and graceful with skin that shined like polished wood. Chetachi carried herself with confidence. Her beauty wasn't just in her face or body but in the way she moved, as if she wasn't bothered by anything around her. She came to visit her uncle who lived on the edge of the village, and almost immediately she caught Obi's attention. Obi noticed Chetachi the first time he saw her at the well. Chetachi didn't look at Obi's direction whenever he came around. She always kept a straight and mean face, and this caught Obi. Obi decided to observe her closely and found out she is always nice and polite to villagers. This made Obi desperate to have her. One evening as Obi was coming back from the farm, he crossed paths with Chetachi. She walked slowly, her steps steady and graceful. She was carrying a basket of tubers on her head, her back straight, her face calm as usual as she stopped to listen to Obi. Chetachi, you've been avoiding me all this while. May I know my offense? Obi asked. Chetachi raised an eyebrow and looked up at him, not breaking her calm expression. Obi, just been busy. Her response irritated him. Obi wasn't used to being brushed off like this. He was used to women being excited to see him, not acting like he didn't exist, but he forced a smile, trying to keep his cool. You're always so mean, he said, taking a step closer. Why don't you let me walk with you? We could get to know each other better. Chetachi gave him a long look and said okay. Obi had waited patiently, hiding his usual fire beneath a mask of calm. And it worked. Chetachi, the woman who once walked past him like he was nothing but air, was finally giving him her time. That evening, as they walked along the narrow path that led through the yam fields, the sky above them blazed orange and purple with the setting sun. The soft sounds of crickets began to rise from the grass, mixing with the distant drumming of pestles as women pounded yam in their mortars. It was the ordinary music of village life. But in Obi's mind, it was the sound of victory. Chetachi was here beside him. And soon, she would be his. He spoke lightly, asking her about her uncle, about her childhood, about her life outside Nui. She answered politely, her voice calm, soft, but never too revealing. She gave him just enough to keep the conversation alive, but never too much to let him inside her world. This intrigued him more. Most women of Nui would have been giggling by now, blushing under his gaze, desperate for his touch. But Chetachi was steady. She was not afraid of his piercing eyes. She was not swayed by his smooth words. It was as if she knew something he didn't. That thought unsettled him, though he masked it with his charming smile. By the time they reached the edge of the forest road, night had crept in. The moon was rising, round and pale, casting a ghostly glow over the path. Obi slowed his steps and looked at her, his voice dropping lower. Chetachi, he said, his tone carrying the weight of someone who was never denied. You know, I am not like the other men in this village. I can give you more than they ever could. Chetachi stopped walking. She turned and faced him fully, her basket still balanced on her head. Her eyes were calm, steady, almost piercing. Obi, she said softly, you speak as if you own everything you set your eyes on. But tell me, what happens when you desire the one thing you cannot control? Her words cut through him like a blade. For the first time in a long time, Obi felt something unusual, something like discomfort. But he quickly covered it with a smile. He stepped closer, his height towering over her. Every woman eventually falls for me, he whispered, his voice low and confident. Even you. Chetachi didn't flinch. She didn't blush. She didn't look away. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, as if studying him. Then, with a faint smile that barely touched her lips, she replied, we shall see. And with that, she walked past him, her calm footsteps echoing in the silence of the night. Obi stood rooted to the spot, watching her disappear into the shadows. His fists clenched at his sides, his jaw tight. Nobody had ever spoken to him like that. Nobody had ever looked him in the eyes and refused to bend. He should have been angry, but instead, he was obsessed. Something about Chetachi's calm, her mystery, her unshakable presence, it burned inside him. He wanted her more than he had ever wanted anyone. And deep inside, a darker thought began to coil in his mind. If charm would not break her, then perhaps his other secret would. The evening in Nui was too quiet. The kind of silence that feels heavy, as if the night itself was holding its breath. Obi thought he had finally won. They kept talking for days. Casual visits, and so one day, Obi invited Chitachi to his hut, suggesting it's an opportunity to bond well. Chitachi, who already grew fond of Obi, agreed. Chitachi was sitting in his hut, the oil lamp flickering against the mud walls, her soft face glowing in the golden light. He poured palm wine, a sweet, rich drink tapped from palm trees, and spoke to her in that velvet voice that had trapped so many others before her. Chitachi listened calmly, sipping slowly, her eyes fixed on him. To Obi, it seemed her guard had finally fallen. He moved closer, brushing his hand against hers. His smile widened. And then, as always, the question slipped from his lips. Do you know the difference between a man's manhood and a snake? Chitachi frowned, confused. Before she could respond, he whistled. That sound, low, eerie, like a spirit's cry, filled the hut. Shadows shifted. And then it appeared. The serpent. Dark. Gleaming. Alive. Slithering out of his body, its scales catching the lamplight as it coiled, hungry for flesh. Chitachi's eyes widened, but she did not scream. Instead, with swift hands, she reached into the folds of her wrapper and pulled out a small white whistle. Its surface shone faintly, as though carved with power. She raised it to her lips and blew. The sound that followed was not like music, it was sharp, piercing, filled with a strange energy that vibrated in the air. Obi froze. His eyes widened in horror. The snake stopped. Mid-strike. Its tongue flickered, uncertain. Its eyes turned, away from Chitachi, and back to Obi. No, Obi whispered, stumbling backward, for the first time fear cracking his mask of arrogance. How are you doing this? Chitachi's voice was calm, but her eyes burned with fury. You are not the only one who knows how to summon a serpent, she said. But unlike you, I do not use it for evil. Tonight, Obi, you will pay for every woman you destroyed. And you will greet Azuka in the afterlife. Azuka was Chitachi's childhood friend, the shared loving memories together. Azuka's death shook Chitachi. She vowed to revenge the death of her best girl. The snake coiled around him, tightening, crushing the air from his lungs. Obi gasped, his proud, perfect face twisted in terror. His smooth voice, the same voice that had lured countless women to their doom, was reduced to a broken whisper. Please. But mercy was not in Chitachi's heart. She blew the whistle again. The serpent struck. Its fangs sank deep into Obi's neck. The venom spread like fire, searing through him. His body shook violently, his breath ragged, until finally, silence. The serpent released him, its task complete, and slithered back into the shadows, vanishing into the night. Obi, the man once called the finest in Niue, laid lifeless on the floor. By morning, the entire villagers gathered in the village square. There he was. Obi. The man they had admired, the man they envied, the man every woman blushed for. Now pale. Still. Dead. Beside him laid the serpent, its head severed, lifeless. Chitachi stood before the villagers, her face calm, her spirit heavy. She raised her voice so all could hear. I did not come to Niue as a visitor, she said. I came to find the man who murdered my friend Azuka, and the others whose lives were stolen. You were blinded by his cuteness, but I saw the truth. Obi was no ordinary man. He carried a serpent inside him. He used his charm to lure women, and when they trusted him, the serpent struck. Gasps rose from the crowd. Murmurs swept through them like wind through dry grass. The truth was too much to believe, yet the proof lay before their eyes. Some of the women who once giggled at Obi's smile now stood frozen, realizing how close they had come to death. Others wept quietly, mourning the sisters and daughters they had lost. Elder Tinubu stepped forward, his staff of authority trembling in his hand. We were blinded, he admitted, his voice heavy with shame. We praised him, admired him, and all the while, he was the monster amongst us. That day, the truth was carved into the memory of Niue. Obi's name was erased, spoken only as a warning to young women. Do not be deceived by cuteness. Not everything sweet is safe. Sometimes danger wears the face of perfection. But Chitachi's name became a legend. She was remembered not just as a visitor, but as a warrior, a sister, a woman who had walked into the lion's den and silenced the beast. Mothers told their daughters her story, teaching them the lesson hidden within it. Charm fades. Beauty can deceive, but strength, courage, and wisdom will always prevail. Years passed. The village of Nui thrived again. The laughter returned, the drums beat louder, and the fear lifted. But no one ever forgot the shadow of Obi. And in every moonlit evening, when the young girls sat to hear tales by the fire, they whispered the story of Obi, the serpent man, and Chetachi, the woman who ended him. It was not just a story. It was a warning, a reminder, and a legend that would live forever.